How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with your boys Alex and Ryan. So if you didn't hear yesterday, if you might be living under a rock, the latest news on Juan Soto is that Andy Martino of SNY said the Yankees have held preliminary conversations with the Padres about Juan Soto. Now, nothing has materialized since then, so it's been a little bit of a quiet period. Of course, free agency hasn't even started yet, which will kind of get things going. World Series, and then we'll hit free agency. But Juan Soto, certainly, they're listening. They're listening to offers. There's going to be teams inquiring, obviously, but he fits the Yankees like a glove. It is, and not the one that OJ had, an actual glove. He fits the Yankees perfectly, and the short right porch Yankee Stadium, whatever it might be. The variables are all there. He's durable. He's young. He's a lefty. Like everything you want in a player, Juan Soto brings to this team. He's exactly what if Brian Cashman could make a player in a lab, it would be Juan Soto. So, with that being said, I feel as though they should be making a strong push at him. The Yankees were, looking at him during the trade deadline. They had scouts, according to Martino. They had scouts looking at the Padres. So, we're definitely excited to see how this materializes. But this is definitely exciting news because, the Yankees are always linked to these guys during every offseason. But this one just makes so much sense for us. But Ryan, how are you feeling? I know you're a big Juan Soto fan, obviously. Coming to the Yankees would probably get you really excited. How realistic do you think this is, and what do you think about the news that's coming out?
Yeah, so, let's be clear about Juan Soto. Juan Soto is, by all intents and all purposes, the perfect player for the New York Yankees. And look, I know that people are going to come out and say, well, maybe half the league or a bunch of other teams, when they check in, are going to be able to outbid the Yankees. And I think that would be overlooking the Yankees' prospect depth in terms of pitching. Look, the San Diego Padres are going to lose not just their first or their second or their third most valuable starting pitchers in terms of F4. They're also going to be losing their closer, Alex. So that's 4 big-time pitchers on their pitching staff that's likely not going to be there next year. Maybe they bring back Michael Wacha, maybe they bring back Seth Lugo, but do you think, considering that they're trying to shed payroll, that they're going to be the top bidder for Blake Snell, or that they're going to be the top bidder for Josh Hader? Absolutely not. So knowing that, what the San Diego Padres are going to need pitching right now. And look, maybe they go out and they're able to find a top-of-the-line starting pitcher. They still have Joe Musgrove and Yu Darvish, and I imagine in their heads that those two are going to be better than they were last year. But the Yankees do have guys that could intrigue them. Clark Schmidt, obviously, made 30 starts for the first time in his career last season. And look, the ERA wasn't pretty. A 4.64 ERA is pretty meh, right? Like for a league average starting pitcher, that's slightly worse than the average. But he's got some upside. He's a guy who got better throughout the season, and he's maybe somebody that the Padres would be interested in. He'd likely pitch a little bit better in San Diego as well. It's a little bit more of a pitcher-friendly ballpark. According to StatCast, he would have given up 4 fewer home runs in Petco Park versus Yankee Stadium. And if you consider just kind of the home run issue Schmidt had early on, those 4 home runs might be the difference between a 4.64 ERA and maybe a 4.3, 4.2 ERA, depending on the situation, right? So, looking at that fit there, that would work. The Yankees obviously also have, the top 100 caliber prospects. Chase Hampton and Drew Thorpe are both 2 of the best pitching prospects in all of baseball. Chase Hampton was ranked as the number 55 prospect on Baseball America. And in terms of just swing and miss stuff, his stuff is excellent, right? 33.1% strikeout rate, 3.63 ERA as a 21-year-old between high A and double A. He looked really good this year. And then in terms of hey, all right, what are some other maybe depth pieces the Yankees could give up in terms of pitching? You have Randy Vasquez, who put up a 2.37 ERA, a 2.87 ERA, with the major league team. He had a 4.59 ERA in AAA, which seems concerning, but again, the league average ERA in the International League was 5.18, so it's a little bit hard to judge pitchers there. And over the course of the final 6 starts, he had a 2.37 ERA, and he was averaging over 5 innings a start, so clearly there were adjustments made during the season that allowed him to pitch a little bit better. He also had a 109.6 stuff plus in AAA, so the upside is certainly there. Then you have a guy like Bailey Dees, who's a reliever in the system, 6'8", big dude, 2.60 ERA, 30.3% strikeout percentage between high A and AAA and double A. And then of course, you're probably going to look to get an outfielder to replace Soto. Now, you can't really replace Soto, but just somebody to play the position. And I think Everson Pereira is perfect here. Look, I know he struggled in his major league stint, but considering that report that came out that there were a lot of prospects that struggled because of that disconnect between the minor and major league coaching, I think you kind of consider it a wash. Dude, this guy was unbelievable in AA and AAA. 300, 373, 550, 48 slash line, 139 WRC plus, 18 home runs. He had a max exit velocity of 114.5 miles per hour. That is elite in terms of power. We know he's a tool shed. He has issues in terms of swing whiff rates, but it's not swing decisions. His chase rate was actually above average, and his in-zone swing rate, he's always been aggressive in zone. So from a swing decision, from a defensive, from a speed, from a power standpoint, he's got all the tools. It's just a matter of getting that barrel accuracy. And those 5 prospects as a whole, that is a really, really strong offer for Juan Soto. And I promise you that if the Yankees were to make that offer, the Padres would stay on the phone. So, with that being said, Alex, I think the thing here is, will the Padres make him available? And are the New York Yankees finally going to get over the hump and make that big time move?
Well, I think it more so is about Cashman finally realizing that this is the right move. You know what I mean? In the past, we've made moves that everyone was kind of half seas on. Like, everyone was 50-50 on. I'm not sure about this. We want it because it's a great player. But the difference between what we've done in the past and Juan Soto is this. One of them is 25 years old, and the rest of them are 30-plus years old. One of them has played 5 seasons, or rather 4, minus the COVID-abbreviated season. So out of the past 5 years, 4 years really, he's played a minimum of 150 games every year except for his rookie season. That is not usual for what the Yankees invest in. We usually invest in players who play 80 games a year and are 35, So I think this shift in strategy, the shift in mentality, the shift in target needs to be in the direction of, whether it be Yamamoto or whether it be Juan Soto. Both of them 25 years old, both of them freaking super durable. So that's where I look into this situation and say to myself, it's a pitch perfect thing for the Yankees. It's a perfect player for the Yankees, not because of how great he is and because of the offense and because of, what he would do in Yankee Stadium with the short right push, but because he shows up every freaking day. And if Aaron Judge misses any time, Juan Soto is going to be there to help pick you back up and help you, give you a chance to compete. That is something that we have not seen. I mean, Judge came out and said it blatantly. This team, when I wasn't there, we lacked balance. We didn't do the small things right. Garrett Cole came out and said it. We lacked balance. When Aaron Judge was out, we couldn't contend. We couldn't compete. That should be an eye-opening thing from 2 of the team's best players. And if Hal Steinbrenner wants to commit to what he told Aaron Judge when he signed him to a $360 million deal over 9 years last year, that we are not done, that we are still building, we're still adding pieces, they need to do that now. However, Juan Soto is going to cost $30+ million in the final year of arbitration. So he's going to cost a lot of money. He's going to take up most of what the Yankees have to have available if they don't want to go past that last luxury tax threshold, the Steve Cohen tax. They are not going to be able to pay him and others. So, with that being said, Ryan, I know Andy Martino floated the idea of potentially including Rizzo in a deal like this, offloading the $20 million. Obviously, he's 1 year left on his deal, and then you move on, take that money, roll it over. What do you think about that? What are your thoughts about the Yankees trying to offload some salary so they can afford Soto and continue spending in free agency and obviously have an extension in mind for him long term? Do you think that there's anyone on this team that you could rationalize being moved?
Anybody, besides Cole, Judge, I don't think you'd have to trade Dominguez or Volpe. So I'm not it's not that I wouldn't consider it. It's that I don't think you'll have to. Especially considering why would the San Diego Padres, who have Xander Bogaerts, Manny Machado, Ha-Seong Kim, Jake Cronenworth, why would they want another shortstop? That doesn't feel like that makes much sense either. But look, Alex, the Yankees, if Anthony Rizzo is somebody that the Padres want, whether you'd have to eat money or not, I don't really know. It's a no-brainer, right? There is really the Yankees' limitations for what they shouldn't be able to give up or wouldn't be able to give up for Juan Soto should be far and few in between, right? Like I said, maybe there are 4 guys on this roster I would say, nah, right? Or I'm not even saying no to Dominguez and Volpe. I'm just saying I don't think it's going to cost that. In what planet would anybody, I don't see. He's 25, right? I'm trying to wrap my head around just how crazy it would be to acquire a guy who's going to be 25 years old at the start of the season. He turned 25 yesterday, and already has nearly 30 wins above replacement. He's 40% of the way to being a Hall of Famer. He's not even 50% of the way to being 30, right? I don't know how else to put this, but Alex, this is just a no-brainer, right? I get it. Maybe the Yankees won't have a first baseman. For Christ's sake, throw me at first base. I don't care, right? It's Juan Soto, right? there are certain, and I rarely feel this way, as a guy who like tries to be all about player value and stuff like that, and understanding the context of trades and everything, right? Like, I've sat here and said, hey, I understand that the Yankees weren't going to trade Anthony Volpe for Matt Olson, or hey, I understand they weren't going to trade Anthony Volpe for Luis Castillo, right? I get that. But with that being said, those guys had tangible reasons why you were like, okay, you know, there's a risk involved here. There is literally no reason why you would not consider trading anybody and everybody for Juan Soto. And again, you know, we talk about perfect fit, right? And I feel like that undersells it. You know what I mean? This is a guy who's played 150 or more games every single year of his big league career that we've played a full season in. The only exception was his rookie year because he came up on May 15th, right? Like, maybe I'm being too hyperbolic here. Maybe I'm getting too caught up in the hype. I don't think I am. Like, Alex, is there literally anybody in your lifetime that you've ever looked at and said, this is the most perfect player for the Yankees, more perfect than Juan Soto? He has more walks than strikeouts in his major league career, man. He has 160 home runs. He hasn't played his age 25 season. When he was my age, he was one of the 25 best players in baseball in his rookie year. So like I just don't think, like, this isn't a conversation for me, man. It doesn't, you can list off like a billion names. I'll say yes every time.
I mean, look, if they move Rizzo, you know, I know you're probably in favor of this. Call up Ben Rice. See what he's got. Let him play first base. You know, he's been working there. Put DJ LeMahieu at first base. You got Glaber, you got Volpe, you got Oswald Peraza. You can survive with that. If you say you stick around Jake Bauers, he can play first base. Actually a decent defender there. So, like, you know, there's options. And Juan Soto, of course, not the best defensive player on earth, but, you know, the offensive production makes up for it tenfold. He's never had a season with a below 40% on base rate. You could put him in the cleanup spot. You could put him at the 1 spot, the 3 spot, anywhere in the top 4, and he's going to dominate. You know, now if Aaron Judge is all about winning, here's my concern though about specifically trading Rizzo. I think that Judge will probably not want that because he's he's good friends with Rizzo. So I feel like that may be something that stands in the way. In terms of winning baseball games, you know, if he wasn't that close with Rizzo, I think he'd be like, yeah, do it, pull the trigger. But the Yankees are probably moving on from Rizzo after this upcoming season anyway. $20 million, I just don't see the value there. He's going to be, 34, 35 years old at that point. He's heading towards the back end. I think that Ben Rice ends up getting promoted to AAA early this upcoming season. I think he probably plays with us in the Grapefruit League in spring training. If he hits well and he gets promoted to AAA, his stint there may be short if Rizzo, if anything happens to him. If anything happens to Rizzo, I think Ben Rice is next man up since the catcher position is now filled by Austin Wells and Jose Trevino. So, and they also have Ben Rortvedt. I feel like right now the Yankees need to start leaning on some of their prospects, and this is the perfect time to do it. You know, you give Juan Soto that contract, you spend big on a couple of players that can help you turn it around, and you also mix in that blend of youth, and you keep costs down at third base with Oswald Peraza. You have Jason Dominguez in center field. You have Austin Wells behind the dish. Maybe you have Ben Rice at first base. You have Michael King. You know, you have Nestor Cortez. You have Clark Schmidt. All these guys are cheap as nothing. You have Drew Thorpe coming up, who's going to be probably featuring in the majors at some point, 2024. Again, you're going to have to trade somebody for Juan Soto, but I'll ask you this, Ryan. I don't think they're going to have to trade any big prospects for Juan Soto like some people think they will, because look at what Mookie Betts got with the Dodgers, and Dodgers give up what? Alex Verdugo, Connor Wong, and Jeter Downs. Like, that's nothing. And Boston still offloaded a big salary in David Price. So it's like, you look at what bigger deals like this year before free agency, what happened. Those deals weren't that big. Verdugo's he's like a below average offensive player slightly. So, I'll ask you this. What do you think a realistic deal looks like for Juan Soto? I don't think we're moving Drew Thorpe. Maybe we give Clark Schmidt, and that's like the headliner piece of this deal because the salary is also so significant that you have to account for that too. But, I know the Padres are going to want something big in return because of how much they gave up for Soto. But I don't think anyone's coming out here giving up Drew Thorpe's for Soto. I think maybe you're getting... Clark Schmidt, in my opinion, it's him and a couple prospects that have some good upside. I don't see us giving up major draft capital in exchange for him, but maybe I'm wrong.
Literally the only team that I would even feasibly consider having 2 pitching prospects better than our 2 best pitching prospects that can afford Juan Soto would be the Phillies. And that's arguable. And I saw a really good point online about Aaron Nola's a free agent this year, and Zach Wheeler's a free agent the year after that. Now, I know the Phillies owner likes spending, but is there a limit? right? Like, and if there's a limit, are those two guys going to play roles on their team? Not saying that Drew Thorpe and Chase Hampton are replaceable for the Yankees, but we, quote unquote, traded all of our pitching depth a year ago and then just drafted two guys who were better than everybody we had before that. We traded Ken Waldichuk. We traded Luis Medina, two top 100 prospects. We traded Hayden Wesneski. We traded JP Sears. And everybody was like, well, I guess the Yankees have no more pitching depth. Again, they literally just drafted two guys completely better than both of them, right? Like, I'm not saying the Yankees are going to just draft two top 100 prospects every single year, but they've done a pretty good job on the pitching side of things. How can you argue with the results? How can you argue with the performance they've had? This is an organization that does pitching well. I promise you that they're not going to, not that they're not going to hesitate, but that it's not going to hurt them as bad to lose one of those two guys, or dare I say, even both of those guys, if it means it's Juan Soto, and considering what they can do. Also, we didn't even, like looking beyond that, you have Will Warren. Will Warren, again, just like filthy stuff. Absolutely filthy stuff. Very highly touted prospect. Brock Selvage is a guy who's flew up the radars because he went from, all right, this guy's a high school pick, he hasn't really made his mark in the minor leagues yet, to he just tossed over 130 innings and he had excellent command and pretty good whiff rates. Then in the Florida Complex League, Henry Lelaine and Carlos LaGrange are double barrel 6'7" guys, right? Like, Lelaine's a lefty, LaGrange is a righty. LaGrange throws 99. Lelaine has excellent command. And again, they're both 6'7". Like, could you imagine just two guys as tall as Giancarlo Stanton, both in the same level, both absolutely dominant at that level? LaGrange led the FCL in strikeouts. Lelaine had really good command and strikeout to walk rates. Both those guys are pretty highly touted guys on that Florida Complex League team. When it comes to arms, they've got it. And as you mentioned, like Clark Schmidt, you want to throw in Johnny Brito instead of Randy Vasquez, maybe they value him more. Fine, sure, whatever you want. You want Andres Gomez, Luis Gil, just throw them all their way. You have so much pitching. You have so much pitching talent. And every single time that and not every single time, because I guess it was just once, but the last time we sat here and were like, they traded away all their pitching depth, they just magically found more. So I'm not sitting here and saying that the Yankees can trade pitching depth and just like this replace it. But what I am saying is that if there's any part of your organization that you can trade heavily out of and then replace, it's pitching. And the Yankees have more of it than I think anybody else in baseball at the minor league level. I could be wrong. We'll see what the Padres think, but that's what I think, and that's what I think is going to end up being the case here. And if the Padres make Soto available, it just comes down to whether the Yankees are going to make the offer that the Padres are looking for or not. That's how I view it.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, the Padres definitely aren't going to pick up the phone if it's not something reasonable. I just don't know how much they're going to get for him. I don't know, if that means a Drew Thorpe. I would love to hang on to Drew Thorpe. Anybody else, aside from, of course, like Volpe and Drew Thorpe and Jason Dominguez, anybody else is on the table for me, and maybe even Austin Wells. Like, I'd throw Austin Wells in there if I meant Juan Soto. So, this is the situation we face, but we have the capital, and we have the resources to get this thing done. It's just a matter of how aggressive Cashman and Steinbrenner want to be. And if it means bolstering this team with one of the best lefty bats in the game to help supplement Aaron Judge if we ever have to play without him, or, maybe compound on that success, the top half of our order will carry us to wins. If you look at this, if you say, we're leading off, I'm just going to throw in Soto at the leadoff spot just because, just he could be anywhere. But let's say Soto, Judge, Rizzo, and Stanton, those four guys alone, and we know Rizzo was playing really well before the concussion symptoms, assuming that he gets over those. Those four guys alone, if Stanton bounces back and Gleyber Torres at 5, those 5 guys alone will carry this team, like straight up carry them. And then you have to incorporate the fact that we're hoping Anthony Volpe gets better. Austin Wells looked pretty good in the last 2 weeks of the season. Peraza's still rounding out his offensive identity. Jason Dominguez, like, for God's sake, we have Jason freaking Dominguez. DJ LeMahieu, he really was looking really good at the end of the year. We still have some really talented guys in this batting order. I mean, you could look at a DJ LeMahieu 1, a Judge 2, you could look at Rizzo 3, Soto 4, Stanton 5, or maybe you put Stanton at 3. I don't really know what they would do with Stanton because, he becomes kind of this almost I don't want to say a liability, but maybe a liability if he can't start hitting better. It would be fun. Like it would be fun to figure out this batting order instead of figuring out what reserve outfielder that we don't know is playing in center today. That's not a recipe for success, and I think the Yankees have the recipe for success. They have it. It's right in front of them. The path is laid out. They just have to go and do it. And if all it's going to cost is money and a couple of prospects that they could easily replace over time, I don't see how you turn this offer down. I don't see how you don't execute this right now. if we're going to trade prospects for Frankie Montas, we sure as hell should be trading a top prospect or one of our top pitching prospects for Juan Soto. Okay, it's that simple. So I'm definitely curious to hear your thoughts below. Obviously the report that they had preliminary conversations is a very exciting, and where there's smoke, there's usually fire type of situation. But there's a long off season. Free agency hasn't even hit yet, and we got you guys covered on Fireside Yankees with all the updates and news. As always, my friends, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.